When a reporter walks into a courtroom with nothing but a press badge, a notebook, and the First Amendment, you'd think that would be enough. But when the Marshall Project's Mark Puente tried to observe a public proceeding in suburban Ohio last month, he was ordered out, locked out, and told that he had no right to be there. What happened next wasn't just a clash over access. It was a masterclass in why press freedom still has to be fought for, one courthouse at a time. Hi, I'm Mike Blinder, publisher of E&P Magazine, and this is E&P Reports, the vodcast series where we go behind the headlines to talk with the leaders shaping the future of news. Mark Puente is one of America's fiercest accountability reporters and one of its most unlikely. A former truck driver, seriously, turned investigative journalist. Puente now leads the Marshall Project's Cleveland Bureau, focusing on policing courts and judicial misconduct. His work has twice been nominated for Pulitzer Prize and came in as a finalist 2 times, and has earned in the national, let me see if I say this right, Mark, Al Nakula Award for police reporting. Is that correct?
It's shortened with the Al Nack Award. It's the Nakula, correct.
Wow. You got 2 decades of experience at outlets including the Cleveland Plain Dealer, the Baltimore Sun, which is a shell of itself, back to my old town, Tampa Bay Times, and Los Angeles Times. You bring what I'd like to say is I started reading some of your stuff, getting to know you better, at least offline, and I think you bring a blue-collar sensibility to watchdog journalism. And you got a personal mission, if I may be so bold, to keep the justice system accountable. Would you say that's pretty much summing you up, sir?
100%. I'm a blue-collar kid, blue-collar worker, and my work focuses on the blue-collar people who are caught up in the system.
Amazing. And it's so good to have you on the show. We should have had you on before. But when we come back, we'll talk with Mark about what really happened inside that Ohio courtroom, why public access to judicial proceedings is under growing threat, and how local reporters can stand their ground when transparency is on the line. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Walter Hussman. Our family has been in the news business for over 100 years. Journalism includes 2 parts, reporting the news and providing opinions. But in recent years, there's been too much opinion appearing in news reporting. This has eroded public trust in news reporting to the lowest level of any U.S. institution. To address this, we started a nonprofit, the Center for Integrity in News Reporting.
The Center for Integrity in News Reporting, CFINR, is on a mission to rebuild public trust in journalism, one newsroom and one classroom at a time. We champion the effort to have news organizations and journalism schools create and prominently display their own clear, concise statements of core journalistic values. Learn more by visiting the Center for Integrity and News Reporting site at cfinr.org.
All right, Mark, I want you to step back and walk us through the moment. You walk into a public courtroom and you're told to leave. What was going through your mind as this unfolded?
I walked in, I had my lanyard with my press pass out as I identified myself twice going through 2 security checkpoints with armed officers. I told them I'm a journalist. I'm going to view the arraignments. I hadn't been in this particular courtroom in many years. So they pointed me to the right room. I walked in and I noticed there was probably 10 to 12 people sitting in the rows who were public or people who had proceedings in the court. I took 6 or 8 steps and immediately a armed security officer starts screaming, get out, you can't be here. It kind of stunned me. I stopped and looked around and he approached me and he got right toe to toe and I couldn't walk forward, so I could only walk backwards. And everybody was looking at me, so I wasn't going to cause a scene. So I very politely said, show me the policy that allows you to ban me from this courtroom. Otherwise, I'm not leaving. He got louder and said, leave, and started walking towards me. So I walked backwards. I stepped outside the glass door. He locked it. I knocked on a door and said, can you please get a supervisor? A few minutes later, the judge's bailiff came out and she said, judge is not letting you in. I said, I want a copy of the policy. We had a conversation. She says, well, you need to put it in writing and send it to us. I said, hold on. I pulled out my notebook, wrote the question out and said, here you go. I'm not leaving until I get it answered today. So I think she was kind of surprised at that. And she says, well, it'll be a while. And I said, I'll be here all day long. I have nothing else to do, but I'm not leaving until I get an answer today. She had me sit in a windowless room. I sat there talking to a couple individuals for about 45 minutes or so. She came in, got me. The courtroom was empty. She said that the judge would take the bench at some point, knowing many courtrooms require journalists to fill out a form getting permission to shoot photographs or record it. I filled it out. I gave it to her. Judge takes the bench. A few minutes into the arraignments, I pull out my phone. That same security officer starts screaming, "Put your phone away, put it away." I looked at him and says, "No, I'm not putting it away." He says, "Put it away. I'm not going to lie to you." I says, "I'm going to take photos." And I took his photo and took the judge's photo. And I looked at the bailiff and said, "Can you please deal with him?" She told him I had permission. The judge finishes his arraignments. The bailiff tells the judge, "This individual would like to speak to you." He has me approach the podium. I told him who I was. He cut me off, said, "I know who you were." And he told me he wants confidentiality in the courtroom. And I told him, "Sorry, sir, but it doesn't work that way." I was very polite. I was professional because I wasn't going to be, look at somebody who got hot-headed or lost their temper and causes more concern. So I said to the judge, "Where's the policy that allows you to do this?" He said, "I had to call the Supreme Court to get guidance. They haven't called back yet." And I said, "Sir, with all due respect, based on my takeaway from this conversation is you have no policy. You're looking for an answer for a problem you've created." I moved on and said, "Listen, I'll be here for the next Tuesdays and Thursdays for court for the next 3 weeks." He asked me, what cases was I coming for? And I said, "You can't ask that. The public can come in your courtroom. We don't have to tell you what case we're watching." And I says, "I'll be here for every case on your docket." And his eyes got kind of big. I said, "I'll be here for every case in your docket until I'm done." And he then acknowledged that, "Okay, yeah, you can be here." And I politely said, and I'll bring the form to take photos. Can you make sure this guy doesn't scream like he did?" So I did leave. I have been back, and I'll be back again this week.
I got to ask, and you don't have to tell me, but why did you go in that courtroom in the first place? Was there a case you were looking to follow, or you just wanted to go see what was going on in the courtroom today?
I got a tip, we all get many tips in this business that there's no way this could be true. I thought it can't possibly be. I did some research, found some records, and thought, oh my God, this might be true. And it was from a journalist, the high-ranking journalist in town, from another news outlet. It said, "This happened to me. I can't believe it happened to me. You need to go look into this." I thought, okay, perfect. Once I walked in that courtroom and raised the question, okay, this is how this has kind of flown on the radar for so long, and no one's talking about it because I have no idea what triggered them to do that. But I went back the next day, and the bailiff said, "Well, we have people here who are bloggers, citizen journalists, and we didn't know who you were." I said, "It doesn't matter. They can come in this courtroom too."
We we do a lot of reporting lately about press access, slap suits. May I ask you, and you again, I don't want to cross any lines. Does this judge in particular lean far right? Has he done this before? Do you feel like he was feeling a little bit more emboldened in today's world where he's watching, that maybe press shouldn't be as free as it used to be?
That's a good question, Mike. I don't know which way he leans. I do know the town at one point was a heavily Democratic town, but frankly, I don't look at the judges or the public officials. I don't care because there's bad actors no matter what party stripes they're wearing. So what I do think is the part about emboldened. In the last few years, going back to 2016, I've noticed some public agencies again, I'm only a local reporter. I've reported on local government affairs, but a lot of them are emboldened to say, "We're not giving you the records." They want to wait out 6 months. But that raised my suspicion that day. This guy just think he's going to tell me to get lost and I go away. Well, I'm not going away.
All right, so let's discuss your position and management and who you report to and what. Again, there are some publishers now that are feeling just so beaten up. They'd rather take an easy road than have to deal with, as I referred to earlier, slap suits, issues, problems. I'm just trying to keep the lights on. How much support are you getting in your current position? And are they okay with you doing all this? I just got to ask because there are some reporters, I think, that would say, "Nah, my boss doesn't want me to make waves right now. He just wants me to get the news out." Where are you in your current ecosystem, sir?
As soon as I was told I couldn't go in, once I got in that side room, I immediately called my boss. He lives about an hour from there. He insisted on coming down there. I told him, "No, I can handle this. This is the first time it's happened. I'll just keep your phone on and don't ignore it." So the support was there. He notified his boss, and they never once said leave. I'm an experienced reporter. I knew what to do. I wasn't going to leave. And if they would have told me to leave or we don't want problems, I'd quit my job that day. And because I believe that we have a mission and the public has a right to know.
Well said. Were you prepared to possibly be in contempt and sit
Well,
in a cell for a few hours? Has it ever happened to you? I got to ask.
no, but again, that's why I was very polite. I'm a professional. I wasn't going to let them bully me into leaving. And if that's what they would have done, let the chips fall how the chips fall, because I was not leaving until I got answers. They just can't stop somebody from coming in the courtroom.
So there's not much more I can ask you about this specific instance because you're still percolating a story, you're still sourcing it. You are going to let E&P know about it so we can tell our audience, correct? So should we get back up to 30,000 feet and just talk about your background? I mean, you're blue collar to the core. I can see it. I can feel it. I respect that. How does that background shape the way you investigate and do your work, sir?
It shapes it because when I got into this business, I was stunned as a 35-year-old intern who spent 15 years as a long haul trucker and a local driver. That media, and I've said it publicly, and I'm not concerned about the backlash. When I got in this business, I was stunned at how dismissive longtime journalists were of the working class. I had a great run at the Plain Dealer in Cleveland. I turned a sheriff into a convicted felon. I got people thrown out of office. But my sources for all those stories were the frontline workers, the desk jockeys, the janitors, the hot dog vendors outside the courthouses, because I talk to them people because they hear everything, they see everything, and they're often ignored by people in the media because they want to go to the top or get the laughable PIO or the CEO. I don't deal with those people. I go to people who know the truth and know the facts.
Wow. So, I mean, and I get that. I mean, there is, so when I use that term elite media, that sometimes that, they just paint all media with that brush. Like, when you're flying from one coast to the other, you're looking over square states, wondering what's going on down there. Do you believe that is part of the culture and we have got to have a hell of a lot more empathy for all of our readers? And I'm not trying to paint anyone with a brush, or I'm not trying to be in any way, shape, form, or size classifying people. But do you feel that has been the history, and maybe there should be some more blue collar in our newsroom, sir?
I do, and and then nothing against any journalism school leaders that are listening. I tell kids you don't need to go to journalism school. I didn't. I took a couple reporting classes, copy editing class. That's all you need if you can read and write. But I read newspapers voraciously as a young kid when I was a truck driver. So I've said it publicly. I've said it for other outlets. There's not enough blue collar people who can talk to frontline workers, and that's where they're missing their mark at. I focus on them people, those individuals every day.
And you were a finalist for 2 Pulitzer Prizes. So you are breaking those norms. May I say so? I mean, because you're working for the Marshall Project, so you definitely have the chops, right? I mean, I'm not trying to put you on a pedestal, but you've changed the mold, wouldn't you say?
Well, if I could change the mold more and get more people or more journalists from the urban universities in Cleveland or other big cities, instead of going to the Ivy Leagues and that's someone could say, yeah, but you went to Chapel Hill. Yeah, I did go to Chapel Hill, but because I couldn't get a 4-year degree in 4 years as a full-time working truck driver, so I quit my job. So yeah, I can make an excuse for that, but there's not enough journalists who work in their cities because start at a small paper, pay your dues, keep moving up the chain, and then you might get picked up by the Washington Post, New York Times, LA Times, whatnot. Luckily, I told Tom O'Hara, the former managing editor of the Plain Dealer, when he talked about hiring me to go into a bureau. I walked into his office. I was nervous. I was scared. I had 3 teenage kids at home, a wife, and 2 dogs. And I said, listen, Tom, I get you can hire 200 journalists tomorrow who have 10 to 20 years experience, but I will outwork every one of them every day as long as I'm here. And I believe I held that to be true, and my record showed that. But that's from my blue collar background as a truck driver.
I hear you. And it's coming through. All right, so let's go back to your philosophies on investigative journalism. You're not a gotcha guy. I mean, you want to make sure that both sides, I can tell, and I've read your stuff, both sides of an argument want to be part of your writing. What advice do you give reporters who are being coached on or feel a need to be, I hate to say clickbait, or just go for those, go for those amazingly provocative headlines and leads without really having balance? What advice would you give them, especially with your background?
I mentor a lot of college or a handful of college students and young journalists, and I still talk to them regularly. I tell them, be fair and stick to the facts. Keep your biases and opinions out of it, and don't take sides. I said you can hit somebody hard, show them in a bad light, but do it respectfully and be fair and give them time to respond. And that's the philosophy that I've used throughout my career. An hour ago, I was on a phone with a police official in this community where I went to the court and said, here's what I'm looking at. I'm laying on my cards on the table. You need to get your boss in front of me because he needs to see what's going on. And they respected it.
Okay, Mark, we're getting to the end of our journey because, attention spans in today's world. People beat me up if I get this thing longer than 20 minutes. So you've said, and I'm quoting you to you, journalism matters more than ever now. What do you mean by that? Are you positive about the future of our democracy with that final check on power still being in local cities? Are you still hopeful and feeling good about the future?
I am. I see the work that a lot of young journalists are doing. I think there's towns across this country, big and small, that the watchdogs have been diminished, but there's still enough out there trying to do good work and making a difference. I often write or send a note to when I see a good story by young journalists, hey, keep up the good work. I really liked it. I think people need to encourage it, subscribe, and help keep it going because it depends on it.
Mark Puente, twice Pulitzer Prize finalist, and a former truck driver, got to say that, who is now leading the Marshall Project's Cleveland Bureau, focusing on policing, courts, and judicial misconduct. Thanks, Mark. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Mike.